So when starting the process, I knew that I wanted to have a brand that kind of focused around political advocacy and politics, since I wanted to major in political science in college. So when looking at my resume, I realized that a lot of my resume centered around leadership, and in particular in those areas. And so when making my own personal email signature, I made sure to have my year in my name, but I also made sure to highlight that I was president of Junior State of America, which was a political club at my school that I was president of. And I also made sure to highlight the Congressional Council, which is an organization that I founded that was centered on engaging youth in the political process. So that way I was able to focus on my hook of leadership and, once again, political advocacy.
Fantastic. We want to make sure we share your email signature with all of the students.
I posted it.
Okay. I guess we'll go with Mrs. Williams first. Mrs. Williams, summarize for us the conversation in your small group.
So we discussed resumes, and if there were areas within resumes that needed to be enhanced. So we talked about some of those and offered suggestions on how to fill the holes in resumes. There were a couple that wanted to continue to focus on leadership, so we talked about some potential leadership opportunities. There were a number of people who wanted more community service, so we talked about some ways to do that, and Mrs. Wynn posted earlier some ways to do that as well. I think we've talked through the email signature, so I think we nailed that one. And then I understand there's going to be more around branding, where we'll have to spend more time in the future on clearly identifying and having students be able to articulate their brands.
Do you think that will be a good focus on the conversation next month? Return to this issue of branding.
Yes, I don't think we have complete clarity on branding, or when we talk about how we would want others to see us
Right.
and have that reflected in the email signatures. I don't think we would be there today. So yes, it's where we need to spend some more time.
So let me make this comment for all the students as you are finalizing your college list. I need you to think between now and next month on the brand that is best aligned with your list. So if you know you're applying to careers in medicine, what's the brand that you either have or have developed that's aligned with that? If you're like Alex and you're applying to STEM, what's the brand that you have or you can develop aligned with that? You need you to think creatively. And if you're like Gabrielle, if you know that your brand is music, then we need to go deeper into, I know Gabrielle is nominated for the Douglas College program. I know that she's received awards. We need to highlight all of that in her brand. Mr. Williams, how did the conversation go with your group?
I thought the conversation went well. We started talking about branding, around what is a brand, and then I gave them examples of my brand. So, I showed them my email signature that I use. I showed what my brand looks like on social media. And then we started to talk about their brand. So I think the team or the group has an idea of what they want to focus on. And they really got a good start, because I saw a lot of good email signatures at the end. So thank you for prompting them. And they just started typing it. And I think they got some really good ones. I think now we also discussed around being able to take that to a resume. So then we started to talk about different components of the resume, what they should focus on. And then we said, all right, what are some people said, well, how do I fill these gaps? And so we started talking about plans along those lines. So I think that the group got a good start on, email signature, kind of starting to frame my brand and what I need to do to start tweaking my resume.
Outstanding. Okay, before I open it up for questions, I want to make sure that all the students are aware of something that I need from you. I need you to send us an email today summarizing what you learned from the conversation, any additional questions that you may have, any changes or direction that you're thinking about going in with your email signature. And also I want your feedback on the small group conversations, because we believe that if we can cultivate these types of conversations, that we could go deeper into the curriculum. And also you can feel free to give me any feedback about the arrangements of the groups, because right now we only have two guys. I don't know if anybody else noticed it, but we only have two guys. And the reason that we only have two guys, I mean,
Yeah.
the reason we only have two guys is guys don't do the work. All the students who are on this call are students that I personally invited to participate because they did the work. And those of you in North Carolina, South Carolina, you know that there are other guys in your respective cohorts, but they're not on this call and they're not in this session because they wouldn't do the work. If you don't do the work, there's no context for this conversation. So if you didn't have an email signature, there's no context. If you don't have a resume, there's no context. So that's how we're going to be moving forward. And I want you all to have a sense of how far ahead you are from your classmates. The fact that we're having this conversation in June and many of your classmates aren't thinking at all about college now. They're not going to think about college until September, and it's going to be far too late at that time. So before we close down the session, open it up to any questions about anything that we've covered today from anyone. Yes, Gabrielle.
Okay. For most of my activities, as you know, I center it around music, but for undergraduate, I plan on majoring in a humanity field, specifically sociology. Should I continue to focus everything on music until I arrive to undergraduate, or what do you think I should do?
Well, the real issue is the college list. If, for example, if colleges on your list value music, then what we want to show them is that you are passionate about music. Not that you're going to major in music or pursue it as a career, but it's going to lead them to believe that if they offer you admission, that you will enhance their music program either by going to some of the labs or by participating in some of the programs, maybe not formally. So anything that you can. So just use Spelman College, for example. We know that Spelman, Whitney, is it called a glee club? What is a Spelman, those women that sing, what do they call?
It's all our glee club.
Okay, so let's say Spelman College has a glee club. Well, it doesn't mean that you're planning to be in it, but if you have a voice that could be showcased in it, and you apply to Spelman and you highlight all of that in your email signature and in your body of work, then they know that if they offer you admission, there's a chance that you may bring in a new voice to their glee club program. They don't necessarily need or have to have someone who's going to major in political science as much as they need another voice. So even in terms of highlighting the pitch that you sing in, anything that we can do in that regard, I think would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I've got one last question.
Yes.
It's about when we start applying and stuff. Colleges are going to see what we did in junior year and below, right?
Yeah. For Sydney, as an example, when Sydney applied early decision to the University of Chicago, all they had to go on was her junior year. She hadn't received any senior year grades. They knew her senior year course schedule. So let me make this clear for all of you. Your senior year course schedule, if you are planning to apply to selective schools, it is not time for you to dial it down. So if you plan your senior year course schedule and you're trying to have more time out of school and you just want to take a couple of rigorous classes, colleges are going to see that. It may not hurt you if you're planning to apply at Georgia Southern or Georgia State, but for some of you who are talking about Amherst and Williams and University of Chicago and those types of schools, this is not the time for you to dial it down. Also, I want to make sure clear, because the test score ranges in this group now, without calling anybody out, the test score ranges are from 18 on the ACT from 18 to 30. If you're at the bottom of the range, of course, you're concerned. So there's two things that you should be thinking about right now. It's not about retaking a test and raising your score. That could happen, but that's not where I want you thinking. What I want you thinking is based upon your current score, what should be your options? So if you're low and you don't do anything, then you need to identify schools that you match to right now. If you are at 30 and you haven't done a whole lot, that means that that's an artificial 30. That 30 is not going to get you into a school where they're expecting you to be accomplished in a lot of other things. but it will meet the test score requirement in some other schools. Don't be, this is a problem every year. Students compare their scores to their students in their school. I need you thinking bigger. If you have a 30, that's a great score. But when you're applying to a school where the average score is 35, your 30 is not great anymore. So when you're thinking about your brand, you're trying to figure out what are the best elements of who I am that I want to highlight as I'm moving forward. And also those of you who have strong resumes, you need to be paying attention to test optional. A lot of schools, Yale just announced that they're going to be test optional. So there are schools that may be within your reach now that weren't before. So if you have a 3.9 GPA, which is almost a straight A average, and you have low test scores, I don't need you wasting your time talking about raising your test scores. I need you focusing on test optional colleges unless you've identified a merit-based scholarship that requires test scores. So if you have identified the presidential scholarship at Tuskegee and it says you need this test score and you know you're within 2 points, then by all means, focus on hitting that. But if you have low test scores and you wanted to apply to a highly selective school that's now test optional, forget about your test scores. Just concentrate on the rest of your body of work to get in.
So I have a question to that point. So like a school like U Chicago is already test optional, but like if I were to bring up my SAT score, would it make me more competitive in that school, or do they just like disregard tests in general? Like all these schools that are test optional, like do they just not even look at it?
It depends on the score. So for example, if you know the median SAT score at the University of Chicago is 1550, and if yours is 1550, give it to them. If yours is not 1550, this is a conversation we went through last year with Sydney, hold it back and don't give it to them. If you had low grades and your test score was good, even if it wasn't at 1550, then give it to them to help you beyond your grades. But for a student like you, where your grades are basically straight A's, forget the test score. Just concentrate on the grades, the fact that you're in an IB program, and make sure that, most importantly, for a school like University of Chicago, and that's what I hope you all got out of the conversation with Sydney, it's the hooks that, and again, the reason we shared Sydney's U Chicago essay in the activity is we wanted you to see how many connections she made. So when she talked about being in speech and debate, she talked about University of Chicago looking for students who are advocates. When she talked about being involved, a leader in her church, she connected that directly to University of Chicago's mission to create leaders. So again, the essays are going to require so much time for us with all of you, is that you got to do the research. We can't go research your schools for you. So you have to do the research and then tell us, this school is looking for this list of things. Let's see how many of these things I can connect my essay to, and how many things I can connect my email signature to, and how many things I can connect my resume to. So that's where we are. So for those of you who are in the mid-20s with your test scores, I need you to really come up with a good group of test optional schools. So for example, the 2 students who are in Lake City, Damian Lee from Lake City had a 19 on the ACT. So Bates College was one of the schools on his list, just like on Sydney's list. He was offered admission to Bates College, and that came with a full scholarship. But in order for him to get that full scholarship, he would have had to go to Maine. So this is another challenge for all of you. How important is the money to you and your family? If the money is important to you, you're gonna have to expand your college list to the schools you match to, no matter where they are. You gotta finish that this month, because we don't have time to come out of this month messing around and come back all over again to a college list that didn't make any sense. Okay, so my wife has shared a number of examples of different email signatures. There are some we shared in the activity. But again, as soon as you all send us your signatures, we're gonna make comments and keep going from there. But key thing, your signature must be in your email account, and it should be on your cell phone. we should never again, after today, receive an email from any of you that doesn't show your email signature. Okay, we're clear on that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Wynn,
Yes.
I have a question. So, and I can't remember clearly, so I may not be accurate on this. But, and I'm not sure which schools accept the Common App and which don't at this point, but I believe the Common App, are the ACT, SAT scores automatically loaded as a part of that application process?
No, many of the colleges allow self-reporting.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
students, so they could either report or not report, or they can self-report. And then before they finalize admission, the college is going to ask for an official score report.
Okay. Okay, so I was just asking that because I wasn't quite sure what was on the application or wasn't. And so for students who didn't want to necessarily share their scores because the school is now test optional, just wanted to make sure that it wasn't on that Common App somewhere.
No, they won't have to do it. But again, I want to make sure, I'm glad you raised that. For all of you, if you are not providing test scores, that means that the college is looking at your resume. Whether or not you submit your resume to the school is not the issue. What is on your resume is going to be on the Common Application. That's the point. So if you have a resume that has a lot of activities and no leadership, it hurts you. If you have a resume that doesn't have hardly any activities, it hurts you. So what we need to figure out is how weak you are and do everything we can to make you strong. Now, for those of you who have weak resumes, I want to be clear. A student with a weak resume who can make the argument, I don't do anything because I can't. My school is located too far from my home. I have younger siblings that I have to babysit. I have an elderly grandparent who needs care. I have to go to school and come right home. Colleges are going to understand that, but they won't know it unless you tell them. And you can't. It's nowhere on the Common Application to say that. It has to be in the essay itself.
I have another question.
I'm sorry, my wife is in the background making a comment. On the Common Application, it does say if there are other circumstances that are not shared anywhere else in your application, you can share it here. But even there, we'd like to see it in the form of an essay. But again, all of these are things that we need to discuss based upon your group of schools. So yes, someone else was about to say something.
Will there be an opportunity for students to have their resumes reviewed?
Yes. Those of you who are in the group with Mrs. Williams, do you mind if she sees your resume?
No.
Okay, raise your hand if no. Okay, those of you in the group with Mrs. Williams, do you mind if we see your resume? Okay, so everybody is good. All right, so we're going to share. Do you mind if everybody sees your resume?
We're having trouble hearing you.
Okay, let me repeat again. Is everyone okay with everyone seeing their resume? Nia's looking kind of strange.
I don't think they want everyone to see their resume just yet. So right now, we'll just leave it up to the small group coaches.
Let me say this to you. I will share your resume with anyone, and when you send me an email today, you let me know if it's okay. But I want you to understand something. It's like coaching. You can't help an athlete become better unless they're willing to be critiqued. And if someone has done something that you haven't even thought of, they won't even know how to tell you unless they see. So for example, some of you have a resume that says, I babysit. But someone else had already decided that they don't say they babysit. They created a babysitting company with a logo, and they are the community babysitting expert, and they are managing toddlers from 3 to 5, introducing them to culturally relevant literature. You would have never known that if you didn't share your resume with them so they could provide input. What I'm saying to you is that you decide, you tell me, I'm not sharing your face with anyone. But I will say this, when you do the activities, all of those examples that I share are because students said, Mr. Wynn, I've come so far, I want you to share exactly what has happened. And so you're saying the end result, but most of you don't see where it started. I mean, when you look at Whitney's high school resume, her resume is stellar, but it didn't start like that. She started in the 9th grade. You know, there were opportunities she had that she took advantage of. So anyway, you tell me, all right, Daniela, tell me if you want me to share your resume, right?
Okay, Mr. Wynn, you have gone over the 12.
I take it that this is, has it been a good session, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, I guess y'all can do your head up and down.
Yes.
All right, so now you know how the sessions are going to go from month to month. This is the format that we want to follow. We want to try to accomplish as much as we can between sessions with what we learned during the session. So we'll share your resumes with Mrs. Williams, and you decide whether you want to share your resumes with anyone else. But our goal has to be to make progress between now and next month. We need stronger email signatures, stronger resumes, more leadership. We just need to be thinking, okay? Any final comment from anyone? Mrs. Wynn, you have a final comment?
We didn't really get into Whitney's story this session, but we would like for her to speak at our next session so she could give a different perspective in terms of the process that she went through. And I think it's very healthy and informative for a lot of our students to hear how she navigated this process and the strategy she used to come to the decision that she's made.
So, Ms. Whitney Williams, you're going to be our guest speaker at our next session.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you all.
Everybody, so I hope you all enjoyed Mr. and Mrs. Williams because they are volunteering and you don't pay them. So you're going to see them every month, no matter what. The only difference will be whether or not some personalities don't work and we have to switch you to other groups. But it looked like today everything worked out well. Thank you all for being in the session.